This is Kim Meyer, host of Choose to Rise. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Rachel Mullins, host of No Filter Friday, here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my new show, No Filter Friday, where we talk about all of the sexual misconduct allegations swirling around Hollywood. A new show drops every Friday at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of No Filter Friday. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Last time on the Gregg and Dave Show.
I can't wait to hear what our next time on the Gregg and Dave Show sounded like.
It's time for the Gregg and Dave Show.
Give it a proper name and we'll work it. Give it a stupid name and it can stay on the ship.
Featuring Greg Watsnyder.
I sound like a dead horse.
And David Bobkey.
I glued my head inside a toilet.
Bravely bringing you the stories of the strange.
And she had a spasmodic contraction of her hand.
As soon as we get the flux capacitor up and running again, we're going to make that happen.
Dave Show, I have to stop you here.
Now sit back and enjoy the show.
That is my least favorite thing to do.
Hello and welcome to the Gregg and Dave Show on Public House Media, your source for all things, well, public house and media related. I am the Greg.
And I, as always, am Dave Show. And yes, I wonder that as well, the Greg, because there's a lot of public media going on Public House Media. I've never actually been to the house.
Right. Is there a house?
I guess maybe it's up at our grand and supreme overlord and ruler Baxter's place, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. We should crash his place sometime. What do you think?
Okay, but you have to drive.
Okay, I will drive. Anyway, you can find us. Where can they find us, Dave Show?
They can find us at thefmedia.com or thephmedia.com, if they so choose.
No, Dave Show didn't just swear.
I did not.
No.
The f.
So.
That rhymes, even though it's not spelled out.
Yeah. Or you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere where good podcasts can be found. Or bad podcasts. We'll let you decide if this is a good or a bad podcast. By the way, head over to our Facebook page and let us know what you think. We are at the Gregg and Dave Show. And, Dave, we've got some good stories today.
I think so. We've got weird stuff as always going on in the world, and many different aspects of odd things to discuss.
Yes.
And in our first story, we haven't talked about matters going on in the school system at all.
No, we have not. What's going on in the schools, Dave?
Well, in a school in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, hello, according to app.com, this is from the USA Today Network, the Lebanon Daily News, there is a school that is requiring smiling in between classes, apparently.
Okay.
So this kind of reminds me of that Twilight Zone episode where everybody's got to be happy or else the kids got like mental powers and they'll make your head explode or something.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I've actually seen the episode. I saw the Simpsons episode it was based on. But anyway, nonetheless. Well, the Simpsons episode is based on the Twilight, whatever. Anyway, I digress. It says here, Northern Lebanon School District students are required to smile while walking the hallways between classes, while bullying incidents are being ignored by administrators, according to a student in the district and her parent. Students who don't have a smile on their face while in hallways between classes are allegedly told to either smile or see a guidance counselor to discuss their problems. Now, I don't know about you, the Greg, but if we had this rule at the Gregg and Dave Show, we would all be going and seeing the guidance counselor on a pretty regular basis.
Why, you don't smile, Dave Show?
I don't think to smile. I'm very busy reading the stories and looking at Mrs. Bale's dour face. She certainly never smiles. For goodness sake. I don't know about you, the Greg. Are you smiling during the show? You were smiling just there.
Right.
When you were laughing.
Right. I think I'm usually smiling and twiddling my hands back and forth. Perhaps you can hear that through the headphones, me playing around with my hands. It's just a self-stimulation behavior that I have.
I'm going to make it a point to smile for the rest of the story. How about that?
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Says here, 15-year-old Juliana Gundrum, a student at the school district, said students who didn't smile faced the consequences. Her mother, Jean, has since pulled her from the school and enrolled her in the district's cyber school program. Now, two things there. First of all, I didn't know you could pull your kid out of school just because they don't want to smile, which reminds me of another Simpsons episode, which means I watch way too much early Simpsons. And secondly, they have a cyber school program now? When did this happen?
Oh, this has been around. Haven't you ever heard of cyber school? Online school? Internet school, Dave Show?
I've never heard of it at that level. I'm familiar with like online colleges and, like that. I guess I'm not familiar with a full cyber school for even the high school level.
The times they are a-changin'.
I guess so. I can just imagine, though, the high school sports there have got to be like esports, right?
Yes. They play all Madden all the time.
Oh, what are you going to be doing this winter? Well, I think I'm going to sign up for the StarCraft team. That sounds like a good time to me. Hashtag Zergling Rush. Shout out, by the way, to Fordiodatus on Twitch and his lovely wife, Emily, who is a co-host over on Beauties and Headcanons right here in Public House Media. Ding! I was smiling and winking when I said that, and I give a little thumbs up. See, this is where I do need a camera for the show because nobody catches that otherwise.
So, Dave Show, I will agree with you that when you're really focused on something, that smiling you really have to think about smiling. When I was in high school, the passing times were so short. I was just thinking about getting to class. And, can I tell you, during passing times, I don't think kids were smiling at me in high school. Kids were trying to dodge my red and white cane as I was literally running through the hallways to get to my next class. One person described it as like the parting of the Red Sea when they saw me and my cane and I coming through. How would you say that grammatically correctly, Dave Show?
I would just I would simply let you flounder around instead of telling you how to say it correctly. But that's because I'm mean and I'm smiling right now because I just feel like being a jerk right now. But nonetheless, yeah, I could imagine that though. And I hadn't considered that point actually. Like, yeah, I had a lot of classes in high school where I had to scramble from one room to the other. And yeah, smiling's not exactly on my agenda. I got 4 minutes to get from classroom A to classroom B. I got to stop at my locker, get books, drop other books off. So yeah, I don't know how big this school is, but that seems like that could be an issue as well.
Mm-hmm. And I like what they said in the story about I'm all about preventing bullying, anti-bullying. So you smile, right, to hopefully prevent that. But is that the best way? Really?
Yeah, it seems like it's just creating a new problem that doesn't need to be created.
Right. I mean, I'd just give everyone a cookie, and then they'd smile all the time.
Of course, then you're going to have some parents that don't want their kids to have, sugar that's in the cookies, or can't have nuts in the cookies, or
right,
good in the cookies.
Right.
Then you got a whole new set.
Yeah.
But nonetheless.
So, Dave, is that pretty much the story?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it here. It just goes on to say that any bullying incident reported to the school district is taken seriously. There's they had to adopt an anti-bullying policy back in 2009. And, but it's still, it's tough because you got one parent saying this happened. You try to tell that to another parent. Well, it's being misinterpreted or it's blown out of proportion, or so on and so forth. And that's all tough. I mean,
yeah.
Unless you can actually say you were there and you saw it or heard it, kind of tough to sort that mess out, I guess.
And what if you're just an angry person and don't like to smile? What if you're mad at the world?
Yeah, what if you're Mrs. Bale? You end up producing a podcast. Yep. She's not looking at me. But yes, nonetheless, I don't know. I mean, some people just learn how to function without smiling, and that's that.
Dave Show, I can tell you that this man in our next story is probably not smiling as he's arguing with his friend who happens to be of not the human species.
Yes, not exactly human, we could say.
Right. Dave Show, have you ever argued with someone who's not a human?
Oh, yes, many times.
You argue with Mrs. Bale all the time.
I was going to say, I'm not making a Mrs. Bale joke. I'm just looking at her. I'm like, nope, I'm not going there. Not going there. But nonetheless, I mean, I'd argue, when my family had a dog, I'd argue with the dog sometimes. I usually lost that argument, but nonetheless.
Right.
Our second story does take us to Fox 12, Oregon. Website is kptv.com, and the headline reads, Domestic dispute in Germany, man arguing with a parrot. Yes, that's right, a parrot. Police were called to investigate a domestic disturbance in a southern German town and found a man arguing with a parrot.
Did Polly not want a cracker?
Maybe he wanted too many crackers. We'll have to find out. A resident near the Swiss border called the emergency number Monday to report his concerns about loud shouting from a next-door apartment that had been going on for some time. Police said Tuesday that officers sent to the scene found there was a loud argument going on, but it was between a 22-year-old man and a parrot. The man told them he had been annoyed with the bird, which belonged to his girlfriend, and that's where everything starts coming together. Okay, so the girlfriend's got a parrot he does not like. I'm going to go ahead and say it, this relationship ain't going to work out. I think, is that a safe bet?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say so.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. The parrot responded to being shouted at with loud noises of its own. No kidding. Police said it couldn't speak, but it could bark like a dog.
Wow.
Now that's, I think, where the story takes a dramatic left turn.
Yeah, I'm thinking, who has more problems here, the man or the parrot? I think they both need to be tested for psychiatric evaluation.
They both got to visit the principal's office or a guidance counselor very, very soon.
Right.
But, I mean, if you have a parrot, aren't you going to teach it some words, if it can learn some words, or at least human noises? I mean, where exactly do you get the idea, let's have it bark like a dog? I guess maybe it's a security thing. Maybe that's it.
Right.
I could see that, I guess. So,
I'm just trying to picture in my mind parrot noises, dog bark. Yeah, I can kind of see it or hear it, as it were.
Yeah, I suppose it makes some degree of sense here. So, yeah, nonetheless, that's about all the story says here. It says, since no one was hurt, the officers left.
Well, good.
So, at least no serious problems have arisen. Apparently, it did not come to blows with the parrot, I am pleased to say. But nonetheless, I don't know, bizarre story there. I don't know, if you had a parrot, the Gregg, would you teach it to bark like a dog, or would you want it to make some kind of like a security alarm noise or something else, perhaps?
If I had a parrot or a budgie parakeet, which I once had, by the way, its name was Vision, I would want it to be peaceful and quiet and make no noise at all and stay the heck away from me.
Now, I'm just going to go out on a limb here, the Gregg, because we didn't discuss this before, but it sounds to me, and I'm no guidance counselor, but it sounds to me like you would want your parrot to be, shall we say, a stiff, bereft of life, resting in peace.
Yes, resting in peace.
If you didn't nail it to the perch, it would be pushing up the daisies.
Right.
Metabolic processes are now history. Kick the bucket. Shuffle off this mortal coil. Run down the curtain and join the choir invisible.
It sounds like you've been thinking about metaphors for our show, Dave's show.
It sounds like I was looking up a Monty Python sketch just so I could recite that. But anyway.
So, yes.
Which, for the record, pulling back the curtain, that's exactly what I did. Anyway.
Yes, I'm not fond of animals. Reptiles, parrots, fish. Well, fish, I don't know.
Fish tend to keep to themselves.
I'm not fond of most animals. Let's just say that. The budgie parakeet that I did have would bite the hairs off of my dad's head. Sometimes it would fly around and like try to get at his hair. And I didn't like that too much. So I had a great deal going on with that parakeet named Vision. By the way, why the heck would my Aunt Mary give me a parakeet for Christmas? I don't know. But I had a great deal going on with it. You stay away from me, I'll stay away from you.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a pretty great deal. And we've got a pretty great deal to tell you about during our commercial break.
Yes. Yes.
Or something like that, yeah. So I guess we'll go to commercial.
We will go to commercial.
Yay.
Hello, I must be going.
The Gregg and Dave Show will be right back after this.
You know, I was just thinking of that song, Home on the Range. Have you ever heard that song, Dave Show?
Oh, sure. Classic cowboy song.
Home on the Range, where the deer and the antelope play. I would sing it. I feel like singing it, but I'm going to. Where seldom is heard an encouraging word. Well, no longer do you have to wait for seldom to hear an encouraging word, because you can hear one every day.
Every single day.
Right here on the media. See, I can do that too. Two can play that game. It's called the Verse of the Day podcast with our friend Baxter Colburn.
Indeed. And there's a lot of verses of the Bible that he can read from, so this podcast could go on for quite a while, thankfully.
Right, good.
Every single day takes, I'd say about 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, 5 to 10 minutes of your day. Little encouragement, little application.
Little application, and always leaves you feeling good. Always leaves you feeling a little bit inspired and ready to go tackle something. I know I got plenty of stuff to tackle today. I should listen to an episode or two before I get on that.
So, we don't want to know what Dave Show is tackling, but if you have stuff to tackle, you should listen to the Verse of the Day podcast. Your encouragement for the day from all of us right here at Public House Media.
Once again, could not be more grateful to Kevin MacLeod and Incompetech.com. On this episode of the Gregg and Dave Show, you are hearing Burt Spirit and Wallpaper. Just two of literally thousands of songs you can find on Incompetech.com. If you need music for a YouTube video, a podcast, whatever, he is totally worth checking out. Incompetech.com.
Bidding's a dirty habit.
I know a worse one.
It's the Gregg and Dave Show.
And we're back. Dave Show, as a kid, did you ever used to read those Choose Your Own Adventure books?
Oh, yeah. I used to get those Super Mario Brothers ones in particular. Those were always fun.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, did you read a lot of those? They have like audiobook versions or Braille or...
They didn't have too many Braille versions, but I was familiar with them. I remember the elementary school librarian teach us to be fascinated with those kinds of texts. So, we want to know, what way would you like the Gregg and Dave Show, today's show, this week's show, to end? So, if you can think of an ending, which there will be one, by the way, but if you can think of an alternative ending to our broadcast today, our little podcast here on Public House Media, type in the Gregg and Dave Show on Facebook and search for us, and then choose your own ending to the Gregg and Dave Show, to today's episode. Won't that be fun, Dave Show?
I sure hope so. I'm wondering how the show turns out now, but
I sure hope so.
yes, and again, we're at the Facebook. I was going to say, I don't think that's the website. Facebook.com. I don't know why it's always the Facebook, the Google. I think I call it that because I'm old, but nonetheless, Facebook.com/Gregg Dave Show. Gregg, of course, with 3 G's.
Yes.
And yes, but we get into our third story here, which I always enjoyed those Super Mario Choose Your Own Adventure books. They were great fun, and of course you had to learn that little trick where you put your finger, where you finished reading, and then it's like, okay, do you want Mario to go for the coins, or do you want Mario to leave the castle? And it's like, well, I want to go get the coins, but for all I know, a thwomp is going to drop on my head, and it's going to be over, and I don't want to start the book over, because that would stink.
Right.
So, thankfully, you don't have to do that with something like movies, because it's kind of impossible to do that with a DVD.
Mm-hmm.
But very interesting thing here from cake.com, Kake.com.
Oh, okay. I was wondering how you were spelling cake there for a second.
Yes, not like the band. I'm sure that's what everybody was thinking was the band Cake. But no, they are the...
Could that be the way we end today's show, by all eating cake?
Ooh, that sounds like a good ending to me.
Doesn't that sound good?
Fantastic option.
Does Mrs. Bale have any cake that she can whip up?
She is shaking her head no. If she does, she's not sharing it with us.
Okay.
But nonetheless, the ABC affiliate in Wichita, Kansas, is reporting on a very interesting story here. This apparently there is a film that it says is edited by your biases. There's a short film called The Angry River, which uses eye-tracking technology to monitor your interest in the film, and then it edits itself. It says Armin Parian is a filmmaker, not a tech guy, but 3 years ago he got a big idea that required a tech solution. He wanted to make a film with the psychological interactivity of a video game, but without a controller. Quote, "We were sitting in a very long, very difficult edit, and someone said, 'Man, I wish we could just edit this thing with our minds.' It was totally off the cuff, but the idea stuck with me."
This is Armin Parian, not Armin
Correct.
Sarian. Shout out to him. Frequent guest host on Public House Media shows.
It was on What's the Score a great number of times, and is on, I can't think of the radio station he's on. Which one is it?
Not the Big 920.
The Big 920, that's correct. The result is The Angry River, a short film starring Jim Beaver and Brooke Smith. Uses eye-tracking technology to gauge who the viewer looks at and where their eyes linger, then edits itself into one of 5 possible storylines, each crafted to the viewer's interest. And I saw there was another version of this story, which I'm going to try to pull up here, that actually had sort of a layout of how the film works. It starts off with sort of 2, I'll call them acts, which, I mean, it's like a 20-minute movie, so it's not terribly long, but it goes through, let's say, 2 acts, and then there's that point where it splits off. So depending on what you're paying attention to, I guess, it can go with like Road A or Road B. And then if you go with Road A, it goes another act or 2 before there's a potential split off again. And if you took Road B, it goes maybe 1 act before it splits off again.
So hypothetically, if this were on your TV, Dave show, Aaron Andrews would get a lot of attention on NFL games. Is this not true?
If I were still watching NFL games on a regular basis, yeah, I mean, I'd be paying more attention probably to whoever the sideline reporters are, or I'm sorry, I'm one of the only people in the world who like Dennis Miller or Tony Kornheiser up in the booth on Monday Night Football. I'd be paying more attention there. But yeah, that's generally how I would work.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm looking again at this, man. It's a very interesting concept because it looks like this movie's length actually varies quite a bit based on which, I guess, sort of route you take. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm presuming, because I can't quite read everything they've got on here, but I guess if you take more of a shine to the father character, the movie's going to end up being a little shorter. There's another character whose name I can't quite make out. But it looks like the movie's like twice as long if you're interested in them. Mm-hmm. So, it's very interesting. It's not quite the movie Clue. You remember the movie Clue?
Right.
Have you ever seen that one?
I remember the movie Clue.
Yeah, it's a fine film, of course, featuring Tim Curry. That's the best Tim Curry impression I can do right now. But I mean, that movie had 3 endings, but you got all 3 of them. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, when it was in the theaters, you only got 1 ending. So you might actually have to go to see the movie 3 times to get all the endings.
Yeah, there you go. Movies were a lot more inexpensive back then, too, so you could afford to go to the theater 3 different times. True.
So, yeah, I'm wondering, of course, exactly how this works if you're watching with several people. And for anybody who's interested, The Angry River follows a family of human traffickers in Portland, Oregon. And by the time this show comes out, it will have premiered online already, May 18th. The ingenious technology that it powers it has already piqued the interest of both major film studios and tech companies, so we are likely to see interactive motion pictures in the near future. I'm very interested in that, and I have to say, Greg, I mean, you sprung to mind as soon as I saw this story. I was like, what if you were watching this movie? What way would it go?
Yeah, because my eyes don't track that well.
Further question that I have is, if you were there viewing the film and your budgie was there, would it track the budgie's eyes?
It may.
Yeah.
In fact, One more thing I wanted to say about this story, if I'm not wrong, which I could be, but the Avengers movie, they had like different scenes where they would let the characters choose their own endings. Something like that happened with the Avengers, and they would like feature different people in different scenes in this most recent Avengers Infinity War movie.
That's also something people can listen to Beauties and Headcanons for. Shout out to them once again. Or Cinema Stories with Sam Kirby. I know he viewed and reviewed the movie. Shout out to our homies over there. Woo!
Yeah, definitely fellow media or show hosts, podcast hosts. Anyway, on the next episode, find out how this episode ends. No, just go on Facebook and how would you like this episode of the Gregg and Dave Show to end? Do Gregg and Dave die of dysentery on the Oregon Trail? I hope not.
Oh, gosh. That's a terrible ending.
That would be a terrible ending. What would be the best ending possible?
I think we find our true loves, and then a spaceship lands and says, hey, it's just like the end of the movie Cocoon. Come away with us. Speaking of great movies, you ever see Cocoon?
I never have.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Wilford Brimley's in it, so you know it's good. No Tim Curry, sadly.
Wilford Brimley, the man who's now doing diabetes commercials. Thanks for listening to the Gregg and Dave Show. We'll be back next week.
Indeed.
So don't worry, we're not ending the show permanently.
Yeah.
Just for this week.
Yes, you know, I have to say, I think we have to find out what the ending is this week, because we were teasing a cliffhanger last week, and then we just kind of ignored it. So maybe we should. People have had time to vote, right? I think Mrs. Bale, we've got the votes in, hundreds of thousands of votes pouring in, and I guess let's see what the end of the show is.
Drum roll, please.
Girl, shake that did putter. That did putter. Shake that did putter. Shake that did putter. That did putter. Oh, baby, did putter. Oh, girl, fuck, come on.
Well, that was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. That I don't even know what to say. Who came up with that? Oh, the one person voted. Okay, good. Okay, wonderful. Hundreds of thousands? No, it's just one. Okay, great. No, that's fine. I'll just take off. That's the Gregg and Dave Show. Thanks for listening. Except if you voted.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
You've been listening to The Gregg and Dave Show. The Gregg and Dave Show theme is Take a Chance by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com.